All right, we're looking here at a 12-year-old uh, seventh grader, his mechanics. Um, so we'll run through it one time here, all the way through. We have both the back and the side view here. Okay. So off the bat, 12-year-old moving like this is very impressive. He's obviously very athletic. He natural athlete, getting himself into some pretty good positions. Um, he throws pretty hard, I think, for a 12-year-old too. I think he's like up in this into the 70s. So um, for like I said, a 12-year-old, I like a lot of the things that he's doing. One thing that I notice here that I feel like he uh, really feels his weight kind of falling back, which is okay. However, he's like on his tippy toes, yet somehow still keeping his weight back. So I feel like that kind of like slows him down and is not the easiest position to rotate from. As you can see here, he kind of is a little stuck. He ends up kind of starting allowing his hips to rotate fully, and he does fully clear them. But I think he kind of like gets stuck at some point in his delivery, somewhere like down in here. I feel like he's just not an ideal position, falling back a little bit, weight still somehow on his toes, knees over toes, yet somehow his weight's back. And like I said, I just think he could be in a little bit of a better position to be able to rotate. And the other thing too that I notice is the arm doesn't fully clear. He just kind of his arm is a little just late to the party, I think, is all. And he kind of doesn't allow the rotation to feel like the energy of the arm coming through whippy at the end. So those are the two main things that I see that I would want to work on and try to change a little bit with him.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder now I've worked with him for a little bit, clearly going to be biased with Chris. I think he's a super talented kid. Um, but yeah, he's always had this little thing where he's slightly inconsistent with mechanics, and I think you see that as these kids go through the growth spurts. Um, he I do agree. Like I think he will take that. He almost uses his upper body and tilts it backwards to feel that weight backwards rather than letting that tilt happen naturally as he kind of moves his hips down the mound. And the other thing we've been trying to look at here recently is you notice on that initial leg lift, he almost fights himself there where he's starting to drop that back leg. He's starting to drop into his hinge and drop into it while that leg is still coming up. So trying to be a little bit more patient there and letting that back hip, like feeling that back hip create some sort of like stable base down the mound that into that drift rather than trying to rush through that beginning part is what we've been trying to work on.
Yeah. I also think he kind of cheats, and it's kind of goes in what I'm saying and getting into this position that's like you're saying, the chest kind of falling back, weight going back. What I was saying, referring to the position that's a little tough to move from, is his initial descent is he kind of cheats it. As you see, he's just kind of bending his knee forward, like he is hinging, and he is getting, like as you can see, kind of loaded back there. But if you see like this initial movement, he goes from straight leg, and then the knee just shoots forward, and that's how he drops into it. So trying to
Mm-hmm.
be a little more efficient and kind of understand what it feels like to load the backside. Again, being more patient as well. I think that, as you can see, his leg is his knees already starting to start to go forward here, and his foot is still climbing up. So I think he needs to be more patient with that, and also just learn how to load the backside a little better. He can even probably load more efficiently and less and get better results than trying to get super deep into this position here and feel like he's loading really, really deep into it when I mean, realistically is getting into a decent position, but the knees are going forward and his weight is on his toes and he's kind of getting stuck. So if he even loads a little less, better mechanics with the load, more efficient, I think he could load less and still get the same output, and
Yeah,
be lower effort throwing the same velocity.
yeah, that might be something to look at and see if that's something we can clear up with that load. Is load knee dominant? Now, when you really go into that, it's tough. Like he does load early onto those toes, But I think that cue of like staying on that heel makes it tough for kids to rotate also,
I agree.
where
I agree.
it kind of makes them a little jumpy off the mound, and you see them like eventually that weight has to transfer onto the ball of your
Yeah.
foot so you can transfer. But again, pitching is mostly, at least from the lower half, is mostly about a timing mechanism. And it might be, yeah, you might be loading that front of the foot a little bit early, trying to cheat those hips through. Um, but and he does take a little bit of a knee dominant approach. Now, is that part of his anatomy? Is that um, or is it just kind of something that he's learned to do and he knows he can do it? We'd have to see. We'd have to play with it a little bit to see if creating a little bit more of a hip dominant approach to that initial load helps him, make that next jump into the 70s consistently.
Yeah. I agree. I think another thing I'm kind of looking at seeing here too, is I would like to see a little bit of a stronger front glove out of him. So I really like the position his back arm gets into, like here. He's getting his arm up in a good spot. Hips are firing. His elbow's pretty high there, but you can see his glove. You can really see it on the back view. His glove is kind of starting to pull out a little early, and then you could see in this pitch, he obviously kind of yanks it a little left. So I think same thing. I just think in general, and I think with younger kids, it's hard, but just trying to be more patient with everything in your delivery. So like you're talking about being more patient with the leg lift, being more patient with the sit, and in this scenario, being more patient with the front side and not feeling like you have to really yank that arm out to be able to throw the ball straight, and trusting that you want to be patient with that front arm and keep that front shoulder and that glove pointing at your target for as long as possible, and eventually it'll clear and allow the arm to come through. But trying to be as patient as you can, kind of with everything in the delivery. Again, with a 12-year-old kid, it's not easy to ask them to be patient when doing a high speed, you know, movement like throwing and pitching. So I'm not expecting that out of him, but I think like as he gets older, I think those are some of the things. Just being a little more patient and trusting his body to get into the places he needs to get to, and trusting that the things will time themselves up. Obviously, like I said, I think he not cheats, but I think he just pulls off. As you can see, his glove is right there, pointed at the target, and then it just yanking. You can see it kind of pulling just off just a little bit there, which then leads to the pitch being a ball glove side. So just pulling off a little with the front side. I would like to see a little more patience with that, holding that glove on the target for a little longer, and trusting the arm is going to come through and be able to release on target.
Yeah, definitely. I think you see it a lot of times where kids will they'll start to take that glove side a little bit early to try to generate that rotational force around, which some of it happens of like trying to like learn how to utilize the ground to create that rotation rather than utilizing your upper body.
Yeah,
Um, but again, yeah, maybe it's him trying to rush through. I think he has a pretty elite, like the stereotypical like lead leg block. He kind of makes
yeah,
up for a lot of those flaws early in the delivery with just elite athleticism late and just really blocks it. But yeah, you do see it. Does seem like that arm comes through a little bit like weirdly over the top, like not in like a slightly weird arm slot for him. Where
yeah,
maybe if we clean up that beginning part, he's going to be able to come through in a more natural, like smoother arm slot. Um, and I think that's something we've talked about with him a decent amount, just saying like, hey, smooth is fast. Like it shouldn't feel like when he tries to throw hard and you see him with these overthrows, he actually sees like a little velocity decrease, or if he'll go down throwing like 65, 66, and on his smoothest throws where he feels like he's not trying is when he's up in that like 68 area. Um,
gotcha.
and so trying to then learn how to throw with intent in that smooth feeling is, I mean, I guess that's pitching. That's where you make that next step is can you create that smoothness and throw with intent
Yeah.
to make that next jump for him. But he's a kid that's gonna like he's gonna naturally gain velocity as he gets
Oh
stronger,
yeah,
as he goes through
just learning how to
puberty.
use his body. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like even if we did nothing, he's gonna throw hard. He's gonna
Yeah,
he's gonna hit puberty soon, and we're gonna see a massive bump as that muscle, like skeletal muscle mass comes through. Um, and so really like the only thing we can't do, or the only thing I don't want to do with him is make him really mechanical with his delivery yet, where I just want him to keep throwing athletically, like get really good at pull downs, get good at drop steps, get good at throwing the ball hard from shortstop, and taking more of a long-term approach of, hey, he's going to develop into something, but we can get really technical with the mechanicals or the mechanics a little bit later on as he has better body awareness and better understanding of what these different feels are. Um, but yeah, for now, we try to just work on like those, try to get him into that a little bit more patient on that backside and a little bit more patient getting into these positions so that he can use that really late aggression that he does well. Um,
For sure.
I do wonder on that initial leg lift, do we see a little bit of a hip shift there too? Right? He's lifting up, and that maybe that's why we see that kind of Gulliver baseball shirt there will dip backwards as those hips just shift rather than kind of like moving stacked down the mound.
Yeah, I mean that for sure. I would look at like later in the delivery, like how, does he get his does he get his hip on plane? And I think he does a pretty
Yeah.
good job. Like I mean, it may be a little bit more. It could be close to straight there, but so maybe if he gets less of this crazy drop, I mean, shoulders going up, hips going up, maybe it'll allow him at this point at foot strike to be. I mean, he's close to matching the plane there. So
Yeah.
he, and again, if you see here the glove, so the glove, and that's another thing I was going to point out too. Like you always say, you want to rotate, use the glove and the arm as a point to rotate around rather than using that to rotate. So you can
Yeah.
see here his glove is strong out, starts to kind of pull it in right there. It's a good position, and then it drops. So I
Hmm.
think that's also a reason why you see his release a little over the top and farther back than you would like because he loses the ability to really get that arm to come all the way through because his glove is dropping. And then you see it kind of ends up coming back into the side right there, but it goes from pointed at the target to drop, and then that's when he releases. If he keeps that on plane and rotates around the glove and allows that glove to come inside to him, I think he'd be able much easier to be able to feel the glove coming in and the arm coming out and release just a better release, less over the top and more of a natural spot for him.
Yeah.
To just for in that scenario, it may not even be like a velocity thing. That's just as simple as just like being able to command the zone better. Like he won't be spraying as much if he's able to find the right release using the front side as well. Because the front side's something that you don't really need to talk about too much with younger kids. You kind of have to let them figure that out. You can do drills with them and stuff, but you don't want to focus on like the front side. Like there's way more important things to it. But with him being a little more advanced for a 12-year-old, I don't hate the talk of like talking about the front side a little bit and talking about having a stronger front glove and rotating around it. And I think that little bit of difference could be a big uh, contributor to more consistency for him. So
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we have certain things mechanically that help kids throw harder. But really, mechanics are about getting to a point where you can do something repetitively. And so kids will initially they'll start throwing harder as they get more efficient in their mechanics and whatever they deem repeatable. And it might be that front side just dropping, you know, it's just taking something that just like there's slight variance every throw, and it might be messing with that command, like you said earlier. Like it might not be
yeah,
something that correlates well to velo, but it might correlate well to his ability to just sit there and, pound the strike zone
for sure.
or even on his secondary stuff. I mean, granted, this is a fastball, but maybe we have him throw a slider, and on that slider, he's pulling that glove side way more, trying to get that arm through, and that's why
Yeah,
that pitch might be a little bit more inconsistent. And so, trying to find a way that he can repeat his mechanics day in and day out with those same ones is where he's going to start to make that big jump.
for sure. Cool. You got anything else here for our athlete?
Um, no, I think the big thing we look at here is, I mean, we kind of mentioned everything that using that back leg a little bit better, being patient, staying stacked. And then the big thing I think I mentioned a little bit ago, just like staying athletic, getting really
Yeah,
good at ripping pull downs, ripping drop steps. I mean, not every day. Like we have to be cognizant. He is a 12-year-old. He's got to have fun, but having fun throwing the baseball, having fun with that process as he kind of develops over the next 5 years or so. Like he's got seventh grade. He has a should have a pretty bright future ahead of him.
Oh yeah,
Um, and it's how we kind of like keep that fun that or where he's engaged in throwing and liking the process of like working on these little things or getting into better positions and hope that he stays with that love of baseball throughout the next 5 years.
100%. Cool. I think I'm good here. Yeah, I think we touched everything that I saw that I wanted to speak on. Just got to keep working.
Yeah. All
Cool.
right.
Alrighty.